our young consultants have played a role. So it's a very concerted, collective effort of not just the government, but all the stakeholders. And we were hoping to do it within a time frame where we would be the first country to do so in South Asia. And I'm really glad that we managed to do that, because I think with all the problems that we've had with the pandemic and other things, the fact that we pursued this and we got it done and we got our cabinet to approve it shows that Pakistan places a critical importance on human rights across the board. Normally, there's a tradition, you talk of human rights in the traditional sense and you say, okay, women's rights, children's rights, and so on. But human rights is everywhere. You need to have it across the board. It's not just, yes, we have to protect our women, we have to protect, we have to fight gender-based violence, we have to protect discrimination, we have to fight against discrimination, we have to protect our children. But it's beyond that. We have to create a society that is centered on appreciating and imbibing human rights and human values. The right to life, the right to equal opportunity, the right to a safe working environment, the right to a safe environment in which everybody can exist, whether it's a child, a woman, a man, a transgender, a minority. So human rights in our government's perspective means rights across the board. And we also have a different perspective. We don't think that if we are creating a social welfare state, which we have also now initiated, that we're doing it as a favor to our people. No, it is our obligation as a state and a government. We have to fulfill the rights that are guaranteed in our constitution. So this is something that is incumbent. It is our obligation to provide and fulfill the commitments that are there in our constitution, and it is the right of every citizen to demand from the government that we fulfill those rights. So in that sense, the business sector and the industrial sector, agricultural sector, all fall in also under this overhang of human rights that must govern how we conduct our daily lives, how we conduct our state affairs. And therefore, I think business and human rights, and here we're not dealing just with the formal industrial sector, we're also looking at, in the National Action Plan, the informal sector, the agriculture sector. Goal 4, our priority 4 includes exactly this, focusing on the informal sector and the agricultural sector. A lot of data is not there on our informal sector. Sometimes when we hear of data coming about women in the workplace, we suffer because we don't have data about our agricultural sector where women work in the fields every day. So we're hoping that with this widespread National Action Plan on business and human rights, we will cover all sectors of the economy. And because we have consulted the stakeholders, we hope that we will get support in implementation, because the government cannot implement this alone. Neither can one ministry. As Razak pointed out, we already we've spoken to him, we discussed it yesterday. We are going to form an interministerial committee to ensure that the plan doesn't just stay on paper but is actually implemented. And we are going to provide timelines for implementation. But to be able to implement it in that, it will be a larger than interministerial committee. We hope to include our chambers of commerce in it, people from the industrial sector, and our labor unions. Labor unions are critical if you want to have human rights truly established as a central value in your society. Unions, in my view, I even think student unions play very critical roles if they're governed with proper laws. And labor unions are a critical part of our development. If we are going to develop economically, you cannot ignore the labor sector. You cannot not give them their rights. their right to bargaining, their right to demand working hours, facilities, and so on. So we have also consulted labor unions, and we hope that they will also be part of this implementation committee that we are going to form, because everybody's rights need to be protected. The private sector, the public sector, the business community, and the labor class. We also, by the way, have already focused on domestic labor. We have moved a widening of the definition of the harassment at workplace law to include domestic, because for a cook, for example, working in a home, that's his workplace. So that should come as a workplace. And we're glad that the Senate Committee on Human Rights has also approved the amendment, and hopefully it will go through the last stages of passage through Parliament. Because we have also prescribed child domestic labor in the federal territory by amending the 1991 Child Employment Act and prescribing child domestic labor under the age of 14. And I just want to throw this, because we have diplomats here, we have people from international organizations. I think the ILO needs to reconsider its definition of how it defines children who can work. Because according to the ILO, children under 14 cannot work, but children over 14 can be employed full-time. I think there's a lot of contradictions, because here you have ILO saying children over 14 can work. Then we have definitions of children being provided education up to 16. So there's a lot of confusion, even in international organizations. And I think that these contradictions also need to be resolved so that the world functions at a level which is acceptable to all and which provides rights and protection to all. And this is something I think that we need to focus on. I won't go on much more, but I do want to add that for a developing economy like Pakistan, where we have a working population of over 80 million, we need to understand the needs of people who work in the business community and in industry, so that we have stability, we have innovation, we have good governance and rule of law, because that is the only way to achieve long-term sustainable economic growth. And at the end of the day, even more important, that is the only way, if we ensure human rights for every citizen, we will ensure a society that is comfortable with itself, a society that is tolerant, and a society that is moving forward, taking all its people with it, so that no one is left behind. Thank you very much again.